Right, now we're official. Now we're official. Don't confess anything. You're recorded. Right. Yeah. And then once you get yourself in, you just want to go to ebook. Right. Okay. Yeah. You get into the right section. All right. Now we're official. Now we're official. Okay. And like I was saying to you all last week, when you made your accounts. All right. This ebook is identical to your if you were to get a print copy, which you really don't need. I know some people prefer print copies though, but for us, we're doing just fine with the electronic version. But once you're in our textbook, and again, to get here, you just sign in the way you normally sign into when we get to our inquisitive exercises. But instead of inquisitive, this time you're just going to click on ebook, which takes you to our ebook. All right. And then once you're in here, we're kind of going in reverse because Wednesday we're going to discuss writing process. But really, I wanted to talk about sentences tonight since it's so foundational to what we do. So if you just scroll down in your textbook and just click on the sentences chapter, and that will take you here. Okay. I also have um, just some slides that I'll be showing occasionally. And if you look in the week 3 module of D2L, the material that I have right here, and I will go through this again, but the material that I have right in these slides, if you can see my screen down here, okay, is just right here, sentence structure. All right, but you don't have to get that open. There's just a few items in these slides I want to show you. All right, but yeah, folks, okay, sentences. All right, and you know, in most Englishes I teach, at OCC, whether it's English 1060, 1055, composition 1 or composition 2. Um, I always have to do some, excuse me, coaching on like sentence structure. All right. And it's I understand totally. Some of us may have learned this a long time ago and it just, we just forgot it. But it's always good to have just a refresher on sentences. And I think also, with the way a lot of us are used to communicating these days, myself included, we're a lot of us are used to texting, right? I know I am. And I definitely, even though I'm an English teacher, I definitely am not, checking my texts to see if they're complete sentences. In fact, most of my texts are not complete sentences, like on my way, or right, give me extra fries. No, text like that. Okay. That was a complete sentence though. Give me extra fries. All right. But I think sometimes there's nothing wrong with sending text like that, but I think sometimes the issue arises when it's when we can't like shut it down, or we can't make that transition into writing that's more academic or more professional oriented. All right. So, if you are a frequent texter, right, or you spend a lot of time on social media or you tweet a lot, where, some of the conventions of, ooh, I guess the conventions of standard English, I'm using standard English in quotes. All right. But, in some of those arenas, standard English doesn't apply, or conventional English doesn't apply, and that's fine. But I think again, just when we're writing from an academic standpoint, we do have to observe these rules, and one of those rules is proper sentence structure. All right, so think about all that you've learned in the past about the sentence. Okay, and a complete sentence requires a few essential elements. Okay, within the sentence. And as our book tells us, we need a subject and we need a predicate, definitely. Okay, the subject of a sentence, okay, is just what it sounds like. It's the subject of a sentence. It's the topic of the sentence. It's whatever the sentence is about. It's a noun. It's a pronoun, right? You know, some person, place, or thing. All right. So we need that, a subject. The subject tells you who or what the sentence is about. All right. But, okay, we also need a predicate. And the predicate is the phrase that contains the verb. All right. Or it contains a phrase that modifies the subject, meaning it says what the subject is doing, or it says something about the subject. All right. So now we're up to two elements that are required for a sentence to be complete. Okay. Subject, right? Again, the subject is the topic of the sentence, and then the predicate, right? Which is the phrase containing the verb. Or as our book says, our book is cool because these little things, we can click on them and it gives us a quick definition. And like, I get it, you know what a verb is, right? But if there's something that you need another definition of, like predicate, okay, but book's not cooperating. All right. You can just click on, or at least the highlighted material. All right, and get an explanation. All right. So again, two elements: subject, what the sentence is about, or who the sentence is about, and then the predicate, right? It describes what, or it describes something about, or yeah, what the subject is doing. All right, it says what the subject is or what it does. All right, and here's our example. And don't get caught up in a little bit here. We're going to talk about fragments and run-on sentences. All right, so but don't judge the completeness of a sentence by its length. All right, don't judge whether a sentence is complete by the length of that sentence. Meaning, let's look at this sentence. Okay, let's hear this sentence. Oh man, it's not too exacting. All right, but our sentence here, right? Birds, which is our subject, and then fly, which is our predicate or a verb. All right, in this case. Okay, so here's the subject, and then here's what the subject does. All right, and now there's a couple other essential elements that are not explicitly stated in the book, but I do want to say them because sometimes we just take these things for granted. And one of the, or actually two of these items, or two of these characteristics, can be traced really back to like texting and things of that nature. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. First thing we need, always begin, with a capital letter. And I know we learned this a million years ago, but again, sometimes when we're texting, or we're just moving kind of fast trying to get our work done, and we aren't really being mindful of what we're doing, it's very easy to forget to capitalize. All right. Another thing, and this just comes from talking to students, a lot of people are used to autocorrect. All right. Sort of cleaning up these little things for them. So don't rely on autocorrect. Autocorrect does some great things, but autocorrect also doesn't know what it's talking about sometimes. Right? Okay. So birds fly, a very short sentence. Okay. And then here's one. All right. So a predicate says, right, what a subject is or what a subject does. Okay. This predicate is describing what our subject does, but this one describes what the subject is. Okay. Birds are feathered vertebrates. Vertebrates. Okay, made that same mistake this morning. All right. Capital letter, subject, predicate, and then another thing that we may take for granted sometimes is our concluding punctuation. Period, question mark, exclamation point. All right. Those are going to be your ways to end a sentence. Period, question mark, exclamation point. Okay. And again, make sure you're using them appropriately. If you want to show emphasis to something, of course, break that exclamation point out. but don't use it too much, because when you use the exclamation point too much, it takes away some of its power. Like when we make everything, exciting, it just sometimes the exciting things kind of cancel each other out. All right. So now we're up to four things that make a sentence complete. Capital letter to start. Subject, which is the main or the topic of the sentence. Predicate, which is the phrase containing the verb that describes what the subject is or what the subject does. Needs concluding punctuation. All right. Period, question mark, exclamation point. And now the final aspect of a complete sentence. And really, this is the most important aspect, because everything I just said, capital letter, subject, predicate, concluding punctuation, you can have all of that in a sentence, and the sentence can still be a fragment. All right. So you can have all of that, and it can still be a fragment, because the final quality of a complete sentence is it must express a complete thought. Meaning, this group of words can stand together, or excuse me, can stand alone and make sense, right, by itself. All right. So it's like this. Okay. Actually, let me hold that. So let me save that for when we talk about fragments in a minute. But just understand that you can still have subject, predicate, capital letter, period. But if that sentence does, or if that group of words does not express a complete thought, then we have a fragment, or we have what's called a dependent clause. Okay, dependent clause just means it depends on something that come before or after it, for it to make sense. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's cool. Let me turn you up a little bit. Okay, now, all right. Just gonna skip down a little bit to clauses. Okay, our book calls them subordinating clauses, but sometimes I use dependent clause and subordinating clause interchangeably. It just both of these refer to group of words, sometimes containing subjects and verbs, or excuse me, subject and predicate, but a subordinating clause or a dependent clause cannot stand alone and make sense as a sentence. Okay, so if we look at our example here, my yard is now quiet. Okay, so this, right, it's called an independent clause because, okay, my yard is the subject, right? Is quiet, or excuse me, is now quiet is our predicate, meaning because it describes, you know, um, what our subject is or does. So if we were to get rid of this last part of this sentence, my yard is quiet, my yard is now quiet, and put a period there, okay, that could stand by itself and still express a complete thought, right? So this is why that's called an independent clause, meaning you can leave it there and it will make sense, okay? And it will make sense. You wouldn't need anything else. But now let's look at this second part, right? Let's just say this was a capital B because most of the birds flew south. All right, now let's look at this. Here's our subject and here's our predicate, okay? We even have some punctuation at the end, and in our hypothetical example, we were calling this a capital B, right? But if we just say because most of the birds flew south, that can't, that's missing something, missing some context. All right. So this one is a dependent clause because it depends on something to come either before it or after it. All right. So a dependent clause or a subordinate clause. And now I was I was thinking of an example in my brain, but I'll just show you one in a sec here. Okay. So An independent clause, group of words with the subject and a predicate that can stand by itself and make sense. My yard is now quiet. Okay. Dependent clause or subordinate clause, because most of the birds flew south. Okay. This cannot stand by itself and make sense. Okay. Now, just want to move ahead some more and get to why we came here. Okay. Fragments. All right. And in most of the papers I read, and this is 1060 composition one, composition two. When it comes to like sentence level issues, the most common ones I see in assignments are fragments and comma splice. Okay, fragments and comma splice. Okay, and I'll go over what each one of those items are. We've already done an inquisitive practice on sentence fragments. And before before I go further about the inquisitive assignments, don't get too caught up on the score in those, because again, one, you can keep going, until you get the score you want. But those are more or less for us to practice these skills. So we did the fragments exercises, and we're going to keep doing exercises, and they're really designed to reinforce material that we're going over. All right, so also there's other practices on D2L, and that's really my advice to all students. Once we learn these skills, or once you read them in your text, or once we go over them in class, um make sure you practice these skills. And it could be done via inquisitive, but also when you're doing your assignments, like when you're doing your reading questions, right? Check over those to see if you have fragments. Or I know we're just in the early stages of this, but practice identifying sentence fragments. And then once you've identified, then we could say, okay, we got some fragments here. Now we can talk about how we can fix them. But I think the first step in eliminating that issue is to learn how to identify a sentence fragment. Okay. And through your essays, of course, I will help you with identifying them and fixing them. But as we get further into this class, all right, and even as you get further into the drafting process of your essays, then I will start pointing them out, pointing fewer and fewer out. And the goal is for you to catch these. All right, or at least to say, hey, Professor Norwood, I really had some issues with fragments in this assignment. So and that's progress, like you recognizing an issue that you're having. Okay, and again, like I said, that's the first step. All right, but a fragment, okay, group of words, right, could have a capital, could have a subject, could have a predicate, could have proper punctuation, but something's missing. Okay, could be missing a subject, could be missing a predicate. But like I said, sometimes those features are present. All right. But I think a great way to assess, whether something is a fragment is, ask yourself if it's a complete sentence, right? Can this stand alone and make sense? Okay, can this stand alone and make sense? All right. So if we look at our examples, okay, this is my highlight from earlier today. All right, we got two clauses here. Okay, two clauses. One is dependent and one is independent. All right. And our dependent clause is a fragment, is the fragment that's present here. Okay. The catcher batted fifth. Now, here's our subject, the catcher. Here's what the catcher did. Batted fifth. This one's solid. Independent clause. This one could stand by itself and make sense. Okay. Now let's look at this one. Fouled out, ending the inning. Catcher batted fifth, fouled out, ending the inning. All right. And I see sentences like this, in essays. And this is sort of an easy fix because our dependent clause here is missing, as our textbook says, is missing a subject. So we can fix this easily by adding a subject. Catcher batted fifth. He or she fouled out, ending the inning. Or we can join these with the coordinating conjunction or a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunction is for and now, but, or yet, and so. Okay. The catcher batted fifth, but he fouled out, ending the inning. All right. So we could either add our subject here or here, he fouled out or she fouled out, or we can add a comma plus a coordinated conjunction. But either way, this fragment is missing a subject, right? As our book says, who fouled out. Okay. And then here, right? This one's missing a verb. Okay, let me take off my morning highlight. Okay. The first two batters walked. Manny Ramirez again. Okay. The first two batters walked. Manny Ramirez again. Okay. And hopefully we can see how, even though capital ending punctuation has a subject, but what did Manny Ramirez do? Right? What did Manny Ramirez do? Okay. Now, okay. Although the Yankees loaded the bases, right? Here's our subject, bam. Here's our predicate, bam. Here's our capital, and then here's our concluding punctuation. But now we have to ask ourselves, does this express a complete thought? Although the Yankees loaded the bases. As a reader, right, you're probably asking yourself, okay, you know, now what? Although the Yankees loaded the bases, the next batter struck out, right? Although the Yankees loaded the bases, there was still a good chance they would lose the game. All right, or whatever you want to add to this in order for it to get it to make sense. All right, so fragments, are groups of words. Maybe they contain a subject and a predicate. Maybe one of those items is missing. But I think the main thing we should keep in mind, or the main question we should be asking ourselves when we're, assessing whether something is or a sentence is a fragment. Again, ask yourself, does this express a complete thought, or um, is this an independent clause? If you want to get into using the terminology. All right. Again, an independent clause, group of words containing a subject and predicate that can stand by itself and make sense. All right. And a dependent clause, group of words maybe has a subject and predicate, but cannot stand by itself and make sense. Okay. All right. And here's just some fixes. Okay. And I'll go over some more strategies of fixing. All right. Just want to cover a couple more things from our textbook. Okay. You can jump in at any time if you have questions. Okay. Now, we know that an independent clause, right, can stand by itself and make sense. Big man. All right. Okay. It's a run-on sentence. I have a daughter. She is 15 years old. Okay. What makes this a run-on sentence? There's two complete sentences here, or there's two independent clauses here. All right. So I have a daughter. That's one independent clause. And then she is 15 years old, right? Another independent clause. But as you can see, they're joined. These two independent clauses, they're joined and they're joined without proper punctuation. All right. And that's essentially what a run on sentence is. When you jam two or more complete sentences or independent clauses together with no punctuation. All right. Two independent clauses being put together with no punctuation. Also, and you can, as you can see, this sentence is very short. Okay. And I think sometimes the misconception about run-ons is that they have to be these long paragraph length sentences, where that's not always true. That's not always true. You can have some fragments, that are really long, and you can have run-ons, that are relatively short. So again, don't think of things in terms of like a set like if a sentence is short, don't automatically assume that it's a fragment or that it cannot be a run-on sentence. Okay. So I have a daughter. She is 15 years old. Okay. In fact, she's on the phone. I can hear her through my wall right now. All right. So I have a daughter. She's 15 years old. Okay. This is a run-on sentence. Okay. And now our first instinct may be to fix it in this way. All right. Oh, there are two independent clauses here. I know what I'll do. Bam. I just add a comma. Problem solved. Okay. I have a daughter. She is 15 years old. Makes sense. But that will give us that gives you a comma splice. Okay. So putting two or more complete sentences or independent clauses together with no punctuation, that gives you a run-on sentence. Okay. But if you put these same two or more independent clauses together with a comma, that's also incorrect. That gives you a comma splice. Okay, again, the formal definition of comma splice is putting two independent clauses together with a comma. Okay, we can't do that, man. We can't do that. Okay, it's against the law of grammar or the law of sentences. Okay, now, all right, there's a few ways to fix this. And if you look in your book, one of the ways our textbook gives us to fix comma splice is by the inclusion of a semicolon. Okay, and that's technically correct. All right. And here's the funny thing. It kind of shows you like, I guess, the arbitrary nature of the English language, because a comma, this is not right. But if we add like the little a dot over the comma and make it a semicolon, that is right. Okay. I wonder who made that rule up. All right. But rules is rules, so they say. All right. So I have a daughter. She is 15 years old. That is one way to fix comma splice and run on sentences with a semicolon. All right. But while this is technically correct, you may want to go with a different stylistic choice, because like I said, this is right. Nobody can take anything off of your paper if you have this, or nobody can say anything about it, if you have something like this in whatever you're writing. But sometimes you do want to go for style. Or next week we're going to talk about paragraphing, and one of the key characteristics of a solid paragraph is coherence. Or coherence just means like flow and the connection between your ideas. So sometimes if you use, especially if you use an abundance of semicolons, that can take away that can, take away from the flow of your essay, or disrupt your coherence. So again, this is technically right. A semicolon, this is fine. All right. But if you want to go for another stylistic choice, you have options. All right. I have a daughter. Now, I got a comma there. I just told you a comma gives you a comma splice. Okay. Comma gives you a comma splice, right? But we can save it. Okay. We can save the day by adding a coordinating conjunction. I have a daughter. Now our comma splice is fixed, right? Comma splice is fixed. Why? Our friend, the coordinating conjunction. Okay. I know I'm not the only one that's old enough to remember that song either. Right? Conjunction, junction. All right. Maybe I am. Okay. All right. I have a daughter and she's 15
Stop
years old.
telling our age, Mister.
What you talking about, man? I'm 27.
Oh my God.
Aren't we all?
I'm 27, man. Ugh.
I'm 27 and I know that song.
Very good. Very good. Very good, man. Okay. But it's I think it's one of those things where we kind of learn we learn by music.
Yep.
Like like if you ask the average person today to say their ABCs, they're gonna start singing them. All right. So yeah, we kind of learn by song. All right. Or really it's repetition. All right. And if you can repeat something rhythmically, then that's gonna help you retain it. All right. So yeah, I have a daughter and she is 15 years old. And she's never heard of conjunction junction.
Really?
Yeah, man. I don't. You know what? They don't even. I don't know,
That
man.
Schoolhouse Rock or something like that?
Yep, Schoolhouse
Come on
Rock.
Saturday mornings.
Yeah, I mean, she came. She came. She came of age on like Cartoon Network and things like that. And there's some good shows on Cartoon Network, but they don't have Schoolhouse Rock. All right, with sweet pickles and things like that. All right, that's enough of my trips down memory lane. All right, now there's yet another option. Okay, so semicolon, comma, coordinating conjunction, or we can just condense. All right. So when you have comma splice or when you have a run-on sentence, you can use a semicolon to fix it. All right. You can use a comma, but if you use a comma, you must use a coordinating conjunction. And when I say coordinating conjunction, all right, fanboys, right? That's how I learned it, like way back in the day. All right. So if you're using a comma, use a coordinate.
Don't erase that. I want to write that real quick, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So semicolon, comma, and the coordinating conjunction. Remember, if you only use a comma, though, it's going to give you a comma splice, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So if you are using a comma to separate complete sentences, all right, use one of these coordinating conjunctions and use the right tool for the job because, for wouldn't fit in here. I have a daughter, for she is 15 years old. Right? Now I have a daughter, now she's 15 years old. That would make sense, but I think and would be the best choice in this context. All right. So if you're using a coordinating conjunction, again, just make sure you're using again the one that fits best. Like if we say I have a daughter, but she is 15 years old. Okay, that wouldn't make sense. All right. So and then our book, gives us these same strategies. All right. Comma splice, and then a fuse sentence is just what I was saying, like no punctuation. I have a daughter, she's 15 years old. Okay. And again, just to reiterate, don't get caught up in like the length of a sentence because there are long fragments and short run-ons. All right. And then our textbook also gives you the strategies I just gave you all. You can make it, oh, something I didn't say, duh. Okay, the obvious fix. Right? Make one giant sentence into two sentences. Okay, this is certainly possible. All right, or certainly correct. All right, so make one huge sentence into two, or maybe a few smaller ones. Use a semicolon. Use a comma in the coordinating conjunction, or like this example on the bottom, you can just you can condense. And for me personally, and you don't have to follow this logic, but for me, I prefer condensing because I'm all about like trying to be concise when I write something, trying to say the most by saying the least, if that makes any sense. Okay, say the most by saying the least. Okay. And then this is yeah, these are the strategies I just covered. All right, now, kind souls. Okay, I'm just going to change gears a little bit, or not change gears, but change platforms real quick. Let me just switch over. Student. Okay, cool. A couple people already logged into D2L. Very good, very good. Okay, now on D2L, I'm going in content, and your week 3 is now active. All right, it probably was active earlier. But time did I put on this thing? Oh, 8:30. I meant to have it open later. Okay, there's a couple things, and I want to backtrack just a little bit. All right, the first two items, and again, I'm on D2L and I'm in the week 3 module. All right, so our first new item, all right, and all of these are active. Yeah, all of these are active. I had to double check. All right, the first two kind of piggyback on what we discussed last week when we talked about active reading, and coding is really just another style of annotation. Okay, but it's like you're making your own code. Okay, now here's the thing. Okay, your code's going to be up to you if you decide to use a code, but make sure you just stay consistent with it. But again, I know some of us are still trying to come up with a system of annotation that works for us, and that's fine. Like I said last week, it may take you a few go rounds before you find one that you stick with. And that's not to say that it's not going to continue evolving, as you read and annotate more. All right, sentence structure, we're about to look at this in a second. All right, these two videos, okay, these two videos, they're everything I just said about sentences in about 2 to 3 minutes apiece. All right, why don't you just play those, Professor Norwood? Okay, so, and there's this guy on YouTube, Sean McLeod, and I do prefer his channel when it comes to like just quick grammar lessons. And this is just a very quick one, about run-ons and comma splice. And then there's another one on fragments in this module. Okay, and like I said, both of these videos are, let's see, yeah, both of them
another
are under 3
really
minutes.
common mistake that students make in essay writing is the sentence fragment.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sean. All right. So yeah, check those out. If you just want to like a quick, broken down version of what I just said. All right. And writing process, this is going to be our material for Wednesday. There's one more additional thing that I have to add to this module about the writing process, but it'll be up before Wednesday. And then here's our book stuff. All right. Well, I can go more into that on Wednesday. But there is this bad boy right here. Okay. It's a short quiz just to reinforce, what we're covering now. All right. So let's look at these slides real quick. This will be the last couple of things, and then I'll let you guys call it a night. All right. So I'm going to click on this. Actually, mine's already downloaded here, but I'm just going to go download. All right. I'm not going to download it now because it's already, I had to open it earlier. Okay. So let's get this thing open. Okay. You can follow along on your own computer or you can follow along here. All right. I'm not going to go over all this because it's some of this I've covered, via our textbook. Go back to square one now. Man, okay. Fancy. Okay. Subtitles. All right. So sentence basics. Okay. Yeah, you complete me. That's what we want to strive for. All right. So Wednesday, right? We're going to talk about writing process. And the process, just in a nutshell, is brainstorming, drafting, revision, editing. Okay. Brainstorming, drafting, revision, editing. There's some other minor stages between those, but those are the main ones. And the final stage is edit, or the final stages are revision and editing. So this is when you're going back, really, because you're the first draft of any essay. All right, especially the ones we do in this class. First draft, I just want you to focus on getting your ideas out. All right, because there's going to be 2 more drafts, and we can go back and we can revise. All right, but once you get your ideas out there, now it's about refining them. Okay, working on organization, right? Working on readability. Okay, yeah, working on readability. All right, so one of the aspects we're going to be looking for in that revision process is our sentences, sentence structure. Okay, and again, just what we need to be: complete, subject, predicate, capital letter, concluding punctuation, and then can stand alone and make sense. All right. So when you're going back over your own material, and you aren't going to be scrutinizing every sentence, of course. And like I was saying, when you get some feedback from me, I will, point out fragments, at least in your first couple of assignments, your first couple of drafts of essays, with the aim of eventually, like I said, you all being the ones to catch those in your own work eventually. But I will point them out, first. But if you want to get a head start, pointing them out yourself, check your paper for these elements. Do each of my sentences, okay, or the ones that you're not really sure about. Okay. Does it have a subject? Meaning, is there a who or what in the sentence? Right? Does it have a predicate? Does it say who or what this? Does it say what the who or what is doing? Or does it describe a state of being of the who or what? Okay. Did you start with the capital? Okay. Did you wrap up with your punctuation, question mark, exclamation point, or period? And then finally, can it stand alone as a sentence and make sense? Okay. Like when we talk about self-assessment, right? When you're going over your own work, right? Of course, I'm giving you feedback. If you want to see a tutor, right, they're going to give you feedback. But at the end of the day, you're going to be looking back over your own paper as well. All right. Because when it's all said and done, it's your name going on it. All right. So you have to be the one to make those final decisions. Like you have to be your first and last proofreader. Okay. Proofread it, before you submit it. And then, proofread it again before you submit it to a tutor, then proofread it again before you, upload it to D2. And then, the size of a sentence doesn't matter, right? So this is what I was saying before, like, don't think like this sentence is only 2 words, but it is complete. Subject, what did the subject do, right? She smiled, can stand alone by itself, even if we add, a bunch of extra things to it. All right. Subject predicate's always going to be the same. Okay. being able to find subject, verb, and complete thought is the first step to identifying run-ons and or fragments. Okay, so it's important that we do our best to identify the elements of a sentence. Subject, predicate. And I keep saying these words, hopefully, they become, part of your vocabulary, if they aren't already, of course, right? Or part of your way of thinking about writing. Subject, predicate. Okay. Now, there was a slide about clauses, but I'm just going to skip to fragments. Okay. Again, what we talked about earlier. We were going through our material. All right. Fragment, part of a sentence, okay, may lack a subject, predicate, or both, or, it may have a subject and a predicate, okay? Some fragments are dependent clauses. They have a subject and verb, but cannot stand alone as sentences, meaning even though, it may contain a complete thought, it may contain a subject and a predicate, okay? A sentence isn't complete if it doesn't express a complete thought, okay? So we have two clauses here, or two sentences here, right? As soon as I understood the problem, okay? So, we have our subject, I, right? And then we have our predicate, understood the problem. We have our capital. We have our concluding punctuation. But as soon as I understood the problem, does not express a complete thought or a complete idea. As soon as I understood the problem, then what? Okay? As soon as I understood the problem, I thought of a solution. Okay? I thought of a solution is, an independent clause because it can stand by itself and make sense. I thought of a solution. Okay? Now, we have this fragment just hanging out here. As soon as I understood the problem, I thought of a solution. Okay? There's a way to fix this. Okay? Sometimes when we have fragments, we can just take out the period and, join, right? Join a dependent clause and an independent clause. As soon as I understood the problem, I thought of a solution. Okay? Meaning we're getting rid of that period. As soon as I understood the problem, I thought of a solution. Or we can reverse it. I thought of a solution as soon as I understood the problem. All right. So again, one way to fix fragments, right? Just removing that punctuation. Okay. If you have, an independent clause and a dependent clause, right? Just remove that punctuation and put them together. Make a happy sentence, family. Okay. I was not responsible when I was 16. Who is responsible when they're 16? Okay. I was not responsible when I was 16. Okay. Now, I was not responsible. Okay. Independent clause, right? I was not responsible when I was 16. Again, just take out that period. I was not responsible when I was 16. Okay. Now, our book told us about like subordinating words, like because, right? Which, okay, and warned us about the dangers of starting sentences with these words. And I could tell you right off the top that if you have a sentence that begins with which, and you're not asking a question, it's probably a fragment. All right. And I see these kinds of fragments a lot. Sentences that begin with which. All right. So if you're not asking a question like, which one do you want? Which book do you want to read? If you're not asking a question, starting a sentence with which is probably going to give you a fragment. And I'm trying to think of sentences that won't be fragments that begin with which, and I can't come up with any right now. That means they don't exist. No, it's just you'll be hard pressed to find a sentence that begin with which that is not a fragment. Okay, again, one that does not pose a question. All right. The village will enlarge the parking lot, which serves weekday commuters. Okay. Again, just get rid of that period. Okay. So one of the fixes for fragments, a lot of times it's joining two clauses, and more often than not, it's joining a dependent clause with an independent clause. Okay. The village will enlarge the parking lot, which serves weekday commuters. And then finally, let's rent the same movie that we saw last weekend. Okay. Again, you can just take out that period. Let's rent the same movie we saw last weekend. Okay. Oh, we want to do that though. All right. And again, here's just some fixes, right? Connect the fragment to what comes before or after removing a period and the following capital letter. As soon as I understood the problem, I thought of a solution, or, okay, we can revise so that each group of words between a capital letter and a period contains a subject and a verb. Okay. So if our fragment is missing a subject or a verb, we can just add it in. That's fine. Instead of which, we went with it, which is our subject. The village will enlarge the parking lot. It serves weekday commuters. Okay. So fragments, right? They're, fragments happen. Okay. Fragments happen. Don't be afraid of them. All right. Or don't be ashamed of them, I should say. But I think we should be just working on identifying. All right. And identifying and then trying our best to fix. Okay. But I think, again, like I said, the first step is really to identify fragments in your own work, or, if we are doing one of those inquisitive practices, or, a practice of another sort, then it is, really in your best interest to try to identify fragments. And, it's just like most things, just requires practice. All right. Just requires practice. And then, when you practice something long enough, it becomes a habit. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. I attend OCC. My major is business administration. I'm transferring to Wayne State in the fall. Okay. I attend OCC. My major is business administration. I'm transferring to Wayne State in the fall. Run on. Okay. First, I would congratulate this student, for having a plan. But then I'd say, hey, we have some run-on sentences. Okay. Definitely don't put anything like this in a transfer essay. All right, without, revising it. Okay. It's kind of off topic, but if you ever do have to write one of those transfer essays that you may have to, if you want to go to a four-year school when you leave here, always try to have like a faculty advisor, meaning like somebody, like a teacher or somebody that you can show it to, like, hey, is this cool? All right. I used to have one back in the day. He used to beat me up all the time about my writing, which was the best thing for me. All right. So I attend OCC. My major is business administration. We actually have 3 independent clauses here. All right. Now, maybe our first instinct is to join these with the commas, like, hey, this sentence doesn't look right. I do have a run on here. I know, I'll just put some commas in there. All right. But again, just adding commas would give us a comma splice, or actually a couple comma splices. All right. So we don't want to just throw commas in here. All right. But, okay, there are a few methods that we can use to fix run-ons. Okay. First off is separation. Okay. Just make these, just swap out the commas, or if there are no commas, just, you know, put periods at the end of each independent thought or independent clause. I attend OCC, period. My major is business administration, period. I am transferring to Wayne State in the fall, period. Okay. So this is right, separation. Okay. Really, the only issue with this one though is it can just make your writing seem a little bit choppy. All right. And when we talk about, like, you know, paragraph coherence, maybe choppy isn't a good thing. Again, technically correct, but we also want to observe a little bit of style here, or we also want to incorporate a little bit of style here. And we certainly want our paragraphs to flow smoothly, or our sentences to flow smoothly. All right. So separation, you can roll with that. That is correct. All right. But, you know, maybe you want to just try something different, you know, something that's stylistically different. I attend OCC, comma. All right. But again, we can't just use a comma because that will give us a comma splice. All right. But the comma's buddy, right? Our Saturday morning song, right? Conjunction. Okay. I attend OCC, comma, and my major is business administration. Okay. Now we did something, our sentence is technically correct, but it also, you know, it flows a bit smoother. Okay. I attend OCC and my business, or excuse me, my major is business administration. All right. And then we got even a little bit more fancy because we've added a transition. All right. Also, okay, also being our transition. All right. So this one really, you know, it's a combination of separation and coordinated conjunctions. All right. I attend OCC, comma, and my major is business administration. Also, I'm transferring to Wayne State in the fall. Or you could say I'm also transferring to Wayne State in the fall. So comma, followed by coordinating conjunction. Okay, something I don't have up here, and we covered it when we went over our textbook stuff. You can also use a semicolon, you know, to separate. All right. So semicolon, separation, comma, followed by coordinated conjunction. And then this final one, all right, again, like I said, my favorite thing, condense, you know, make a couple sentences into one sentence. I'm majoring in business administration at OCC, and I am transferring to Wayne State in the fall. Okay, now we just said everything in one sentence. Okay, and our sentence has, you know, proper punctuation, has a comma, but it's not a comma splice because we followed up, you know, with a coordinating conjunction. Okay, so again, just like with fragments, you know, try your best to start identifying run-ons and comma splice. And again, just a formal definition, a run-on is a group of independent clauses joined with no punctuation. All right. And a comma splice is a group, two or more, of independent clauses that's, you know, joined by commas. Okay, joined with commas, or basically joining two independent clauses with a comma, or joining two complete sentences with a comma. Okay. Now, all right. A complete sentence, again, just to reiterate, okay, starts with the capital, contains a subject. Subject is the who or the what, right? Contains a predicate. Predicate is the verb or the phrase containing the verb, including punctuation, period, exclamation point, or question mark. And then finally, a complete sentence expresses a complete idea, meaning can stand alone by itself and make sense. Okay. Fragment, group of words, right? That's either missing a subject or a verb, all right? Or it has a subject or verb, but does not express a complete idea, right? And then finally, a run-on, right? Two or more complete sentences joined without proper punctuation, okay? And a comma splice, two or more complete sentences joined by commas, okay? Now, no, that was a lot of content, right? So, you know, it's one thing to hear this, but I think, you know, people talk about learning styles when, you know, the truth is we may prefer to learn a certain way, but, you know, all of us, you know, we use a combination of what people call learning styles. And now we're hearing this material and we're seeing it, right? So that's, you know, audio and, you know, visual, but we're also going to throw in, you know, we have to learn by doing as well. All right. And one of the ways that we can learn by doing, there's just a review slide left over with this. One of the ways we can learn by doing is, okay, you know, I do assign these things. Okay. Oh, wow, I forgot I have to set you guys up. So Frank, we're fine though. All right. So this is inquisitive, right? But if we go back into digital resources and we can look at this, we look at this Norton Wright category. You can click on this. All right. Okay. If you need help with clauses, bam. Comma splices, bam. Okay. And then if we scroll down to fragments, boom. Okay. And I just click on one of these things. And you can do these things for practice. All right. Do I have to do the whole thing? Because it usually, oh, here we go. Usually gives me this option. All right. It says quiz here, but you know, these are just practices that you can do independently. Okay. And I'll just show you how it works. The following passage does not contain a single contains a sentence fragment. Select the revision that has no fragment. So these are great because it doesn't just say, you know, identify the fragment and there's one sentence. This one, you know, you have to look at a sentence in its context. Okay, Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, located on West 55th and 9th Avenue in New York City, traces its roots to a choreographer who interwove modern jazz, or excuse me, modern dance, jazz, and African rhythms in creations such as Revelations. A spectacular work that audiences have enjoyed for more than 50 years. Okay, now, we look at these two passages, right? They're very close in what they say. Actually, they're pretty much identical. Okay, it's just this last part that's different. Okay, here's our fragment. A spectacular work that audiences have enjoyed for more than 50 years. What is a spectacular work? Okay, so this one's missing a subject, right? So this will be our fragment. Whereas here, okay, bam, we have a comma, right? And notice there's no coordinated conjunction here, right? It's not a comma splice. Why? Because a spectacular work that audiences have enjoyed for more than 50 years, that's a dependent clause. So a comma there is perfectly fine. All right. Okay. Oh, that has no fragment. Oh, I picked the one with the fragment. So important lesson about reading directions as well. All right. Bam. All right. So you can go through this, you know, you can click on, again, really whatever exercise, whatever you're having an issue with and you want to get more practice in. Okay. But for right now, fragments, okay, run-ons, comma splice, take yourself through a few of those practices. All right. And really, like I was saying before, the only way we are going to improve at anything is to practice. All right, is to be, you know, proactive about our practices. Okay, so, you know, and I was just in Norton, right? The inquisitive, you know, this is the stuff we'll do for class, but you know, the Norton Wright module, you know, go through this on your own. Okay, be independent, be an independent scholar. All right, be proactive, take ownership of your education, is what they say. Okay,
All right.
so now,
I have a
kind
real
souls.
question,
Yes.
and I apologize for interrupting. What was you gave us a code last week. I think it
Oh,
was
for our class.
I think it was the registration code.
Let me just
I-
bring that up real quick.
If it's not too much, I appreciate it.
No, that's fine. You guys are, oh yeah, I remember you guys. This too is 426-777.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
No. And that's for anybody, you know, jump in at any time, man. Like I don't
Well,
like
you know,
hearing
we
myself.
might have tests on here, so it's good to have access to it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, interrupt me, man. I don't in face-to-face classes, I don't normally talk this much.
All
And then I can barely see you all, so it kind of feels like I'm talking to my screen. So yeah, jump in, just let me know you're alive. Okay. Now, kind souls, what time is it? Cool. We're just wrapping up. Okay. If we were face to face, this is when we would probably be getting ready to take a break, and then I give you all an assignment, you know, when we came back to class. All right. So here we go, folks. We're in the week 3 module, and we're still in week 3, so some of this material we have not covered yet. But if you just want to like refresh your course of, you know, the material we covered, again, sentence structure, that's the slides we were just looking at. These are 2 short videos, and then make sure you take this quiz. This is right on D2L. Make sure you take this quiz before, you know, midnight Sunday. All right, and the quiz is just based on the sentence structure slides. All right, so we'll do this again Wednesday when I'll talk more about writing process, and then I'll tie up a few loose ends that of material that I did not get to this fine evening. All right, any questions for me?
Yes, sir. I have one question.
Uh-huh.
I tried to put in that code that you gave me,
Uh-huh.
and it says, what is it? It says the access code you entered is not valid. Most access codes have 8 or 9
Oh, okay. Were
Alright.
you signed in? Because I think I may have missed it. That the 426-777, that's how you add yourself to the class.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah, but to sign in, you just use your email address and whatever password you chose.
So that our password would be the registration code?
Now, let me do something real quick, Brian. Let me check something out.
Or is it something they would email me?
Right. So you aren't going to get an access code until you buy the book, but your trial version should still work. So you just want to go let me sign out real quick. You just want to go sign in, register a code or purchase access, and then you want your username and password here, the one you set up last week. So don't go, no, I need to register. Just go, yes, I want to sign in.